learn English through story. The hidden whisper of passion. The sprawling city of Delacroix was a place where ambition reigned supreme. It thrived on the clatter of industry, the hum of business deals, and the relentless pursuit of success. Nestled among its towering buildings and cobblestone streets lived a woman named Leila. To those around her, Leila was an embodiment of control, a successful architect who had spent the better part of her life chasing perfection, a woman whose mind was a fortress against distractions. At 38, Leila had achieved everything she had set out to do. She owned her own architectural firm, had designed some of the most prestigious buildings in the city, and moved among the elite. People admired her for her focus and precision, but none of them truly knew her. Leila, in her pursuit of success, had pushed aside any hint of passion or emotion that might divert her from her path. Love, desire, and personal passion had been set aside for the demands of her career. In her world, there was no room for indulgence, no time to stop and explore what might lie beyond her plans. It wasn't that she hadn't had opportunity, as there had been men who had tried to enter her life, and for a brief moment, she had let them, but in the end, she always chose her work, convinced that passion was a distraction she could not afford. The years had passed swiftly, each one blending into the next, until one evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, casting long shadows over the city, Leila found herself staring out of the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse. The city that had once excited her now seemed distant, cold. Something was missing. She felt it in the stillness of the room, in the echo of her footsteps on the marble floors. A yearning stirred deep within her, something she had not felt in years, a whisper she had ignored for too long. That whisper grew louder the night she met Vincent. It was a late autumn evening, and Leila had been invited to an exclusive art exhibition hosted by one of her wealthiest clients. She hadn't wanted to go, as such events were a waste of time in her eyes, but the client was important, and maintaining relationships was part of the job. The gallery was filled with the city's elite, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the murmur of shallow conversations. Leila moved through the crowd, feeling disconnected from it all, her mind already on the projects waiting for her back at the office. That was when she saw him, a man standing alone in front of a massive painting, his back to the crowd. He was tall, with broad shoulders, dressed in a simple black coat that stood out among the ostentatious displays of wealth around him. But it wasn't his appearance that caught Leila's attention, it was the stillness about him, the quiet intensity with which he studied the painting. Intrigued despite herself, Leila found herself walking toward him. As she approached, she could see the painting more clearly, an abstract swirl of colors, reds and blacks twisting together in a chaotic yet somehow harmonious dance. It was mesmerizing, a sharp contrast to the carefully structured lines and forms that Leila surrounded herself with every day. "Beautiful, isn't it?" the man said, his voice low and rich. Without turning around, Leila hesitated for a moment before responding. "It's a broken bar, unsettling." The man finally turned to look at her, and Leila was struck by the depth in his dark eyes. There was a spark there, something raw and unfiltered that she hadn't encountered in a long time. He smiled, a small, knowing smile that seemed to reach inside her. Art is supposed to unsettle us, he said. It's supposed to make us feel something, to remind us that we're alive. Leela nodded, though the words made her uncomfortable. Feeling, emotion. These were things she had trained herself to avoid. I suppose that's true, she replied, keeping her tone neutral. But some of us prefer control over chaos. The man raised an eyebrow. Control is an illusion. Passion is what drives us, whether we acknowledge it or not. There was something about the way he said the word passion that made Leela's pulse quicken. Though she couldn't explain why, she had never met this man before, yet his words resonated in a way that felt personal, almost intimate. I'm Vincent, by the way, he said, extending his hand. Leela, she replied, shaking his hand, surprised by the warmth of his touch. Over the course of the evening, Leela found herself drawn into conversation with Vincent. He was an artist, though he rarely exhibited his work. Instead, he traveled the world, seeking inspiration in places far removed from the rigid structures of society. As he spoke, Leela felt something stirring inside her, a restlessness she had long suppressed. Vincent's world was one of passion, of emotion, of surrendering to the unknown, and though it was foreign to her, she couldn't help but be intrigued. By the end of the night, Leela felt something she hadn't expected, a desire, not just for Vincent, though that was undeniable, but for the freedom he represented. There was a fire in him, a quiet intensity that burned without restraint, and Leela felt the heat of it reaching toward her, pulling her in. Over the next few weeks, Leela and Vincent saw more of each other. It began innocently, not in meetings at art galleries, dinners in hidden corners of the city, but there was an undercurrent to their relationship that neither of them could ignore. Vincent challenged Leela in ways no one ever had. He pushed her to question the life she had built, to consider the possibility that there was more to existence than the rigid structure she had created for herself. You live your life like it's a blueprint, Vincent told her one night, as they sat together in a dimly lit cafe. Copyright. But life isn't meant to be planned, it's meant to be experienced, to be felt. Leela wanted to argue, to tell him that her way had worked for her, that she had achieved everything she had set out to do. But as the words formed in her mind, she realized how hollow they sounded. Yes, she had achieved success, but what had it cost her? What had she sacrificed in the process? The question lingered in her mind, growing louder with each passing day. Then came the night when everything changed. It was a cold winter evening, and Leela had invited Vincent to her penthouse for the first time. She had spent the day in a state of restless anticipation, her mind swirling with thoughts she couldn't quite contain. When Vincent arrived, he brought with him a bottle of red wine and an intensity that filled the room. They sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sprawled out before them like a living, breathing thing. As they drank, their conversation flowed more freely than usual, the wine loosening the carefully constructed barriers Leela had always maintained. At one point, Vincent set down his glass and looked at her, his gaze piercing. "You're holding back," he said softly. Leela's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "You feel things, Vincent said, his voice low and steady. "I see it in you, but you've buried it so deep you've forgotten it's there." Leela wanted to deny it, to tell him that he was wrong, that she was fine the way she was, but she couldn't. The whisper inside her, the one that had been growing louder since the day she met Vincent, could no longer be ignored. "What are you so afraid of?" Vincent asked, his eyes never leaving hers. Leela didn't have an answer. For years, she had lived her life with purpose, with control, but now that control felt like a cage, and Vincent was offering her a way out, a way to feel again, to experience the world in a way she had long denied herself. Without thinking, Leela leaned forward and kissed him. The moment their lips touched, it was as if a dam had broken inside her. Passion surged through her, raw and untamed, and for the first time in years, she let herself feel. She let herself surrender to the heat of the moment, to the desire that had been building between them since the day they met. They spent the night together, their bodies entwined as they gave into the fire that had been smoldering between them. It was intoxicating, overwhelming, and for Leela, it was a revelation. She had spent so long denying herself passion, so long suppressing the whisper inside her, that she had forgotten what it was like to truly be alive. But as the morning light filtered through the windows, reality began to set in. Leela lay beside Vincent, her mind racing. What had she done? She had built her life on control, on discipline, and now, in one night, she had let it all slip away. Vincent stirred beside her, sensing her unease. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice soft. "I don't know," Leela admitted, sitting up and pulling the sheet around her. "There's a broken bar." "This isn't me." Vincent sat up beside her, his expression gentle but firm. "Maybe it is," he said. "Maybe this is the part of you you've been hiding for too long." Leela shook her head, her heart pounding. "I can't live like this, Vincent. I can't just give in to every desire, every impulse. I need control." "Why?" Vincent asked, his voice steady. "What are you so afraid of losing?" Leela didn't know how to answer. Control was all she had ever known. It was what had gotten her to where she was. But now, in the wake of the night they had shared, that control felt fragile, like it could crumble at any moment. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Vincent reached out and took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "You don't have to have all the answers right now," he said, "but you do have to ask the questions." Over the next few weeks, Leela wrestled with those questions. She continued to see Vincent, but their relationship was no longer just about passion. He had opened something inside her, something she couldn't close again, and now she was forced to confront the parts of herself she had long ignored. As the days turned into weeks, Leela began to see her life with new eyes. She realized that her obsession with control had come at a cost as she had built a successful career. Yes, but she had also built walls around herself that kept out anything that might make her vulnerable. In her pursuit of perfection, she had lost touch with the very things that made life worth living. One evening, as Leela stood in her penthouse, looking out over the city, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She wasn't sure where her relationship with Vincent would go, or what the future held, but she no longer felt the need to control it. For the first time in years, she was willing to let life unfold as it would, to embrace the passion and the uncertainty that came with it. Vincent had shown her that passion wasn't something to be feared or suppressed, it was something to be embraced, to be felt in every moment, whether in work, love, or life. And as Leela stood there, watching the city lights flicker in the distance, she knew that she had finally found the balance she had been searching for all along, the hidden whisper of passion that had always been inside her, waiting to be heard. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoyed, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.